The wedding invitation arrived with the weight of a court summons. My name was not just omitted. It was crossed out in aggressive red ink. My daughter had banned me from the happiest day of her life because she believed I was the villain. She did not know that the man waiting for her at the altar was a fiction. In the end, it only took one sentence from me to turn her fairy tale into a crime scene. My name is Marianne Whitaker. At 57 years old, I have lived long enough in Briar Glen, Indiana, to know that the river running through our town hides sharp rocks beneath its calm surface. I suppose my life has become something similar. I am a widow and the chief accountant at Holleridge Transit Solutions, a job that requires precision and absolute adherence to facts. Numbers do not lie to you. They do not smile at you while hiding a knife behind their back. My daughter, however, is a different story. Callie is 29. She is my only child, the one bright spark left after my husband passed. She works as a communications manager, or at least she did until recently. She is engaged to Noah Kessler, a man the internet calls a visionary founder. I just call him the stranger who stole my daughter. I did not expect a thank you card for raising her alone. I did not expect a bouquet of flowers, but I certainly did not expect the email that chimed on my phone while I was reviewing the quarterly audit. The subject line was simply, "The Wedding." The body of the text was cold enough to freeze the blood in my veins. It read, "You are the source of all stress. For the sake of my mental health and the success of the ceremony, you are not welcome at the venue." I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked. My heart did not beat. It just stopped. I was being fired from the position of mother. Before I could even process the cruelty of it, my office phone rang. It was an unrecognized number. I picked it up, my voice trembling slightly. Holleridge Transit. This is Marianne. The voice on the other end was low, distorted, and rushed. "Mrs. Whitaker, you need to check the groom's background. You need to do it before it is too late." "Who is this?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" "He is not who she thinks he is. Check the records. The line went dead." I sat there in the hum of the fluorescent lights, the silence of the office pressing against my ears. I thought about the last few months. I tried to find the logic in the chaos. Callie had changed. It was not just pre-wedding jitters. It was a complete overhaul of her personality. She had started dressing in a style that was too sharp, too expensive for her salary. She had changed her secondary phone number and refused to give it to me. She had cut off her cousins and her aunt, people she had loved since childhood. Then there was the document she had sent me a week prior. It was a list of boundaries, 2 full pages long. I had printed it out and read it with my reading glasses perched on my nose, feeling like I was reading a contract with a hostile corporation. One clause stood out now, burning in my memory. Clause 4. Under no circumstances is the mother of the bride permitted to speak to, contact, or approach any member of the groom's family. At the time, I thought it was just Noah being protective of his privacy. Now, combined with the anonymous call, it felt like a wall built to hide a crime. Why would a mother be forbidden from saying hello to her future in-laws? What were they afraid I would say? Or perhaps, what were they afraid I would hear? I closed my laptop. I did not cry. Tears are for people who still have hope that things are a misunderstanding. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a tactical strike. I decided then and there that I would not beg. I would not drive to her apartment and pound on the door like a hysterical woman. That is exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to be the crazy mother who ruined everything so they could justify locking me out. I drove home to my empty house. The evening shadows were long across the floorboards. I walked to the mahogany desk in the living room and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside lay the wedding invitation I had received days ago, the one where my name had been aggressively crossed out in red marker. It looked less like an invitation and more like a restraining order. I placed it gently inside the drawer, right on top of the yellowing envelope that held my husband's death certificate. I stared at the two documents. One marked the end of my marriage, and the other marked the end of my motherhood. Both smelled faintly of old paper and total, devastating loss. But as I slid the drawer shut, I knew one thing. My husband was gone forever. My daughter was still alive. And I was going to find out why she had turned into a stranger. I needed to understand the enemy. So I started with the timeline. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen, dissecting the last 18 months. Noah Kessler had not just walked into Callie's life, he had descended like a savior from a cloud. Callie had been in a dark place, unemployed for 6 months, and sinking into a depression that made her sleep until noon. Then, suddenly, there was Noah. He was charming, wealthy, and full of answers for questions nobody had asked. But looking back, I realized his answers were like smoke. Whenever I asked him about his university days or his previous office, he would smile that practiced smile and pivot. "Oh, Marianne, the past is just data," he would say. "I focus on the future." I remembered the dinner we had 3 months ago. It was the moment the unease in my gut turned into nausea. We were eating at a steakhouse, and I had simply asked if they had considered a smaller venue to save money. Noah had placed his fork down with a deliberate clatter. He looked at Callie, then at me. "Marianne, you are a negative woman," he said, his voice level and loud enough for the next table to hear. "You project your own failures onto our joy." The table went silent. Callie shrank into her chair, looking at her plate. When I tried to object, he raised a hand. "I apologize if my radical honesty is too much for your generation to process." He added, it sounded less like an apology and more like a press release drafted by a crisis management team. I turned to my laptop. I typed Kessler Ventures Lab into the search bar. The website was beautiful. It had high-resolution images of people shaking hands and glass buildings reaching into the sky. But as a certified accountant, I know how to look for the bones of a business. There were no registration numbers listed in the footer. There were no LinkedIn profiles for the supposed executive team. I ran a search through the state business registry. Nothing. The company was a ghost wearing a tuxedo. I needed human intelligence. I called Janelle Brooks, Callie's best friend since the 3rd grade. Or at least, she used to be. Janelle agreed to meet me at a park bench away from the main road. She was 32 years old, usually vibrant. But today she looked tired. "She won't answer my texts." "Marianne," Janelle said, clutching her coffee cup. "I haven't spoken to her in 6 weeks. I thought she was just busy planning the wedding." I said. Janelle shook her head vigorously. "No, this is isolation. It is intentional." He monitors her phone. I saw him do it once at brunch. He took it from her hand to check the time and scrolled for 5 minutes. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Why didn't she stop him? She's afraid of losing him. And there is something else. Janelle hesitated, biting her lip. "Callie told me that she has to be careful because Noah's family knows about you." She said they know your secret. I stared at her. My secret. I don't have any secrets. Janelle, my life is taxes and gardening. She said. She said they know what you stole. The word hung in the air like a poisonous gas. Before I could press her for more, my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from my work address. The subject line was urgent meeting regarding HR complaint. I drove straight to the office. My boss, a man named David, who had trusted me for 15 years, would not look me in the eye when I walked in. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a photocopy of an anonymous letter. The text claimed that I had been funneling petty cash into a personal account for 2 years. It was a lie. It was a clumsy, easily disprovable lie. But the timing was not accidental. We have to investigate this. Marianne, David said, rubbing his temples. It is just protocol. But someone is trying to hurt you. This isn't about the company. David, I said, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. This is about a wedding. Someone was not just trying to keep me away from the ceremony. They were trying to destroy my credibility so that if I did speak up, nobody would believe a word I said. I walked out of the office into the blinding afternoon sun. They wanted a war. They had just declared one on the wrong accountant. The red lantern bean was crowded with the mid-afternoon rush, the air thick with the smell of roasted coffee and cinnamon. I sat at a small table near the window, my hands clasped tightly around a mug of tea that I had no intention of drinking. When Callie walked in, she did not look for me with the eager eyes I remembered from her childhood. She scanned the room with the wary, guarded expression of a woman meeting a loan shark. She sat down opposite me but kept her coat buttoned to her chin. She did not say hello. She did not ask how I was. I only agreed to this because I want closure, Callie said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the warmth that used to define her. Callie, I just want to understand what is happening. I said gently, I am your mother? We talked every day until 3 months ago. She took a deep breath and looked down at her lap. I followed her gaze. Her phone was resting on her knee, the screen glowing. You have a history of centering yourself in my narrative, she said. The words felt foreign in her mouth, like she was reciting lines from a textbook she had not fully read. Your anxiety during my childhood was a form of emotional control. You created a toxic environment where I felt responsible for your emotional regulation. I stared at her. This was not Callie. My daughter complained about bad coffee and laughed too loud at bad jokes. She did not use terms like centering yourself in my narrative. Callie, are you reading that I asked? Leaning forward. Is that a script? She jerked the phone away, her face flushing red. See, this is what he meant. You invalidate my lived experience because you cannot handle accountability. I asked. You mean Noah? Noah says. Noah says you are terrified of losing control. She stammered, her voice rising. He warned me that you would try to humiliate me before the wedding. He said you would make a scene to make the day about you. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I forced my voice to remain steady. I am an accountant. I deal in facts, not outbursts. Is that why you believe I am a thief? I asked. Did Noah tell you about the anonymous letter sent to my office, the one accusing me of embezzlement? Callie looked away, focusing on a chip in the wooden table. There is evidence. Mom? People don't just make up accusations like that. I have worked at Holleridge for 15 years without a single error, I said. Callie. Look at me. Please. This isn't you. Let's go to a therapist. A real one. Not someone on the internet. And not Noah. Let's just talk to a professional together. For a second. The mask slipped. Her lower lip trembled, and I saw the frightened little girl she used to be. Tears pooled in her eyes. She looked exhausted, her skin pale and her eyes shadowed. I can't, she whispered. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loud against the floor. I can't do this anymore. I choose peace, and peace does not include you. She turned and walked out of the coffee shop before I could say another word. I sat there as the door swung shut, the bell above it jingling cheerfully, a stark contrast to the silence she left behind. I walked back to my car with heavy steps. My daughter had not just rejected me, she had amputated me from her life. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from a number I did not recognize. There was no message, just an image. It was a screenshot of a bank transfer confirmation. I zoomed in on the image. It showed a transfer of $4,500 from Callie's savings account. The description line read, "Event Security Services. Urgent." But my eyes locked on the recipient's account name. It was not a security firm. It was not a corporate account. The money had been sent to a personal account with the initials N.K. Noah Kessler. My daughter was paying her own fiancé for protection against her own mother. He was not just stealing her heart, he was billing her for the privilege of isolating her. I put the car in gear. I was done crying. If Noah wanted to play games with money, he had forgotten that he was playing against a woman who could trace a single missing cent through 10 years of ledgers. The fluorescent lights of the Holleridge Transit Solutions office hummed with a low, headache-inducing frequency. I walked down the carpeted hallway to the IT department, clutching a printed copy of the anonymous email that had accused me of embezzlement. I found Matteo Grant at his desk, surrounded by 3 monitors and the smell of stale coffee. Matteo is 49 years old, a man who treats server maintenance with the same reverence I treat tax audits. He was the only person in the building I felt I could trust with something this delicate. "Matteo," I said, keeping my voice low. "I need to know where this came from. Can you trace it?" He took the paper, adjusted his glasses, and then turned to his keyboard. For 10 minutes, the only sound was the rhythmic clatter of typing. I stood behind him, watching lines of code scroll past like a waterfall of digital rain. "This sender used an anonymizing service," Matteo said, pointing to a string of numbers on the screen. "It is designed to hide the location, but whoever sent this was careless. They logged into the service through a public Wi-Fi network that requires a landing page login. Can you see where I asked? It pings back to a router in Larkstone," he said. "A place called Marble Yard Hub. It looks like a co-working space for freelancers and startups. Larkstone was a 40-minute drive away. I took a personal half-day, telling my boss I had a legal appointment, which was not entirely a lie. I needed to see the place where my destruction had been manufactured. Marble Yard Hub was a trendy, open-plan office building with exposed brick walls and people who looked too young to be stressed sitting on beanbag chairs. I walked to the front desk, smoothing the skirt of my suit. I decided to play the role of a potential client looking for office space. "I am looking for a private suite," I told the receptionist, a young woman with bright pink headphones around her neck. I was actually recommended this place by a business associate, Noah Kessler. "He runs a venture lab." The receptionist frowned. tapping a long acrylic fingernail against her chin. Kessler. Kessler. We don't have a Kessler on the lease. She typed something into her system. Oh, wait. Do you mean the guy who does the weekend workshops, tall, dark hair, always paying in cash? That sounds like him, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. He is weird with the booking names, she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Sometimes he books under Nathan K. Last month, he used the name Evan Keller. He said it was for branding purposes. I thanked her and left before my legs gave out. Evan Keller, Nathan K., Noah Kessler. He was not a businessman. He was a shapeshifter. I knew I was out of my depth. I needed someone who knew how to navigate the sewers of public record. I hired Denise Calder. Denise is 60 years old, a former insurance fraud investigator who retired because she got tired of corporate red tape, but missed the thrill of the hunt. We met in her small, cluttered office that smelled of peppermint tea and old files. She slid a manila folder across the desk toward me. It was thin, which terrified me more than a thick one would have. Your future son-in-law is a ghost, Marianne, Denise said, opening the file. But even ghosts leave footprints if they walk through enough mud. What did you find? I asked. He has been sued in civil court 3 times in the last 5 years, Denise said. Breach of contract. Taking money for media consulting services that were never delivered. But here is the catch. The cases never went to trial. The plaintiffs dropped them. Why would they drop them if he stole their money? I asked. Because they ran out of money to fight him. Or they were embarrassed, Denise said. She tapped a finger on the list of names in the file. Look at the victims. Marianne, Sarah Jenkins, Emily Toth, Rebecca Solis. Do you see the pattern? I looked. I did not need an accounting degree to see the correlation. They are all women, I whispered. Single women, Denise corrected, or women currently estranged from their families, women who were vulnerable, women who had a little bit of savings and nobody looking over their shoulder to warn them. She closed the folder with a definitive snap. Marianne? Denise said, her voice dropping to a serious, steel-hard tone. This is not love. This is a pattern. I walked into the offices of Lyle and Hartwell Counsel with a briefcase full of dread. Arthur Lyle has been my family lawyer since before my husband passed away. He is 58 years old, a man with silver hair and a mind like a steel trap. He greeted me with a firm handshake, but his eyes were serious. I had sent him the digital copies of the wedding documents I had managed to obtain through Denise, and he had spent the morning reviewing them. Marianne, you need to listen to me very carefully, Arthur said, leaning over his mahogany desk. The accusations against you regarding the embezzlement, they are not just to hurt your feelings. They are a strategic maneuver. What do you mean? I asked. If you are painted as financially unstable or morally compromised, it gives Noah leverage to push Callie into signing protective agreements. Arthur explained. He can claim that he needs to ring-fence their assets to protect them from your potential legal troubles. It is a manipulation tactic to get her signature on things she would normally refuse. He slid a document across the desk. It was titled Prenuptial Addendum B. Where did you get this? I asked, picking it up. My hands were shaking. It was filed in the county clerk's preliminary records. Arthur said, Look at page 3, clause 14. I read the text. It was legal jargon, but the meaning was terrifyingly clear. It stated that the bride agreed to a commitment of non-interference from third parties, specifically naming the biological mother, citing undue stress and potential financial liability. He put a restraining order in a marriage contract. I whispered. "Keep reading," Arthur said. "Look at the cancellation terms." I moved my finger down the page. The clause stated that if the bride caused a disruption of the ceremony or cancelled within 48 hours of the event, the groom retained full rights to the organisation fund and image costs as compensation for emotional damages. He is setting it up so that if she gets cold feet, he gets paid, I said, feeling sick. He is turning a wedding into a hostage situation. It gets worse, Arthur said. He tapped the signature line at the bottom of the page. "See that witness signature, Margaret Vane? Who is she?" "I ran a background check," Arthur said. "Margaret Vane was a notary public in the next county. But here is the problem. Marianne. Margaret Vane died 2 years ago. Her obituary is public record." I stared at the signature. It was a forgery. Noah, or whoever he really was, had forged a dead woman's name to validate a contract that stripped my daughter of her rights. "This document is fraud," Arthur said, his voice hard. "It is invalid. But if we accuse him now without the police involved, he will claim it is a clerical error. He will destroy the original and claim you are lying." My phone vibrated on the desk. It was a text message from Denise. I checked the address on the invitation for the groom's parents, Gordon and Elise Kessler. It is a rental property listed on a vacation website. They do not own it. No record of them owning any property in the state. I looked up at Arthur. The room felt like it was spinning, but my mind was crystal clear. "Arthur," I said, "they are not real. The parents, the house, the business, even the witness on the contract. It is all a stage set." "Then we need to bring the curtain down," Arthur said. "But we have to do it when the lights are on him. If you go to Callie now, she will think you are making it up. She's too deep in his narrative." "I know," I said. I stood up, placing the fraudulent contract back onto the desk. I cannot save her by warning her. I have to save her by showing her the monster's face. I walked out of the office into the blinding daylight. I felt a strange sense of calm. I was no longer a banned mother crying over an invitation. I was a witness building a case, and I would not let my daughter say, "I do," to a ghost. The meeting place Denise selected was the 3rd floor of a concrete parking structure near the mall, a location that felt too cold and too shadowed for a Tuesday afternoon. I sat in my car with the doors locked until a woman in a beige trench coat tapped on the window. This was Tessa Rhine. She was 41 years old, a real estate agent with sharp eyes that looked permanently exhausted. She was the ghost of my daughter's future. I unlocked the door, and she slid into the passenger seat. The air inside the car instantly felt heavy. "You are Marianne," Tessa said, not offering a hand to shake. "Denise told me everything. He is using the name Noah now." "Yes," I said, "Noah Kessler." Tessa let out a dry, bitter laugh. "He was Ethan Vance when I knew him. He told me he was an angel investor." She pulled a folder from her bag. "He moves fast. Marianne. He targets women who have assets but feel lonely, and the first thing he does is cut the safety line. He is isolating my daughter," I said. "He has convinced her I am the enemy." "Of course he has," Tessa said, opening the folder to reveal a stack of printed text messages. "He has a playbook. He told me my mother was a narcissist who couldn't handle my success. He used therapy speak to make me feel like cutting her off was an act of self-care. Then, once I was alone, he convinced me to sign a temporary financial power of attorney. He said it was just for investment agility. She handed me a stapled packet. It was a PDF of screenshots. Read the third page. She said, I looked at the text message sent from Ethan to Tessa 3 years ago. The text read, Your mother is centering herself in your narrative. Her anxiety is a control mechanism. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was the exact sentence Callie had said to me in the coffee shop. Word for word. It was not an original thought. It was a script. He copies and pastes them. Tessa whispered, her voice trembling with rage. He has a template for destroying families. Later that afternoon, I went back to Arthur's office. The legal battle was shifting from defense to offense. Arthur was examining the digital copy of the prenuptial addendum again, specifically a QR code labeled Event Shield Premium Payment Portal. I ran this code through a forensic tracer, Arthur said, turning his monitor so I could see. It is supposed to be an insurance bond for the wedding venue. But look at the destination URL. It did not lead to an insurance company. It redirected to a private payment gateway. It is a personal collection pot, Arthur said. If Callie pays this, the money goes straight into a shell account. He is charging her insurance for a wedding that is just a stage play. My phone buzzed. It was Denise. She had tracked down a former receptionist from the Marble Yard Hub, the co-working space where Noah held his fake workshops. Marianne. You need to hear this, Denise said, her voice crackling over the speakerphone. The receptionist told me she used to see Noah in the reserved conference room late at night. He wasn't working. He was standing in front of the glass wall, practicing facial expressions. She said he was practicing looking sad. He would say lines like, I just want her to be happy, to his own reflection, over and over again, until he could cry on command. I shivered. We were dealing with a performer who had rehearsed his heartbreak. But the final blow came when I accessed the HR portal for my own company. Because our transit systems are linked to the city grid where Callie works, some public employee records are cross-listed. I searched for her employment status, hoping to see she was just on leave. The status read, resigned, effective, immediately. Attached was a digital copy of her resignation letter. I read the opening line. Due to overwhelming and toxic family pressure, I am forced to prioritize my mental sanctuary and withdraw from my professional obligations. That is not Callie, I said, pointing at the screen. Callie does not use the phrase mental sanctuary. She calls it peace and quiet. And she loves her job. She would never quit 2 days before the wedding. He wrote it, Arthur said grimly. He wrote it to cut off her income so she would be fully dependent on him. He has her passwords, I said. He has to, but I can't prove it without hacking her account, and that would make me a criminal. We don't need to hack her, Arthur said, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. We just need to prove that the IP address that sent this resignation letter didn't come from her apartment. We need to prove it came from his hotel. I looked at the screen, at the lies written in my daughter's name. Noah Kessler thought he was writing a tragedy. He did not realize he was writing his own confession. I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by the ghosts of the past. A box had arrived that morning from the university archives, returned because the storage lease had expired. It was full of Callie's old textbooks and notebooks. Buried at the bottom, I found a leather-bound journal she had kept during her sophomore year. I opened it, bracing myself for teenage angst. But what I found broke me. In an entry dated 10 years ago, she had written, Mom was hard on me about the credit card bill today. I know she scares people, but she is the only person who actually catches me when I fall. Mom is my safe place. I closed the book and pressed it against my chest. I had been hard on her. I had been strict about money, about saving, about reading the fine print. But I was not a tyrant. I was a widow who had discovered, after my husband died, that he had gambled away our safety net. I had spent 10 years clawing my way back from debt, and I had sworn that my daughter would never feel that kind of helplessness. I was not trying to control her life. I was trying to armor it. Now, Noah had stripped that armor away and convinced her that my protection was a cage. I am done crying. Denise, I said into the phone, I am not going to beg her to love me. I am going to show her that she is sleeping next to a wolf. Good, Denise said, because we are going to set a trap. Predators are hungry. Marianne, if you dangle meat, they will bite. The plan was dangerous but necessary. We needed Noah to reveal himself, not to me, but to the record. I opened my laptop and composed an email to Callie. I knew she would not read it, but I knew Noah monitored her inbox. I typed Callie, I know you do not want me at the wedding, and I respect that. However, the maturation date for the municipal bonds I bought in your name has arrived. It is a significant amount, over $50,000. I need to transfer it to you before the wedding so you can start your new life. Please let me know the routing number. I hit send. Then I waited. The house was silent. The clock on the wall ticked. 1 hour passed. Then 2. At exactly 4 in the afternoon, my cell phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize. I looked at Denise, who was sitting across from me at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She nodded. I answered the phone. This is Marianne. Hello, Mrs. Whitaker. A male voice said. It was smooth, professional, but slightly mechanical, as if the speaker was forcing a deeper register. This is Arthur Lyle's associate. We are calling to facilitate the bond transfer you mentioned in your email to your daughter. I gripped the phone tighter. Arthur Lyle did not have male associates. He worked alone with a paralegal named Sarah, and Arthur would never call from a blocked or strange number. Oh, I said, forcing my voice to sound frail and confused. I thought I would need to go to the bank personally. That won't be necessary, the voice said, quick and eager. We can handle it over the wire. I just need you to verify the bond serial numbers and provide the authorization code for the release. He was sloppy. He was greedy. He had seen the words $50,000 and lost his discipline. I see, I said. My voice dropped the act. It became the voice of the chief accountant of Holleridge Transit. Before I give you that information, sir, I must inform you that in accordance with Indiana state law, I am recording this call for legal and quality assurance purposes. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. A pause. Silence. Sir? I asked. Are you still there? The line went dead with a violent click. I looked at Denise. Her fingers were flying across her keyboard, tracing the digital footprint of the incoming call. She hit the enter key and spun the laptop around to face me. He didn't use a burner phone, Denise said, a grim smile on her face. He used a voice-over IP number registered to a private account. I looked at the name on the screen. The number was registered to Evan Keller. It was the same alias Noah had used at the co-working space. The man who was about to marry my daughter had just tried to rob her mother while pretending to be her lawyer. We have him, I said, He just walked right into the cage. Arthur Lyle moved with the precision of a surgeon operating on a ticking heart. At 9 o'clock in the morning, he filed an emergency motion for an asset protection order on Callie's behalf. The basis was simple but devastating. We cited reasonable suspicion of fraud regarding the prenuptial addendum, specifically the signature of the witness who had been dead for 2 years. The court granted a temporary freeze on any transactions linked to the document. It was a silent, legal stranglehold. Noah felt the grip tighten, and he lashed out. By noon, my phone began to vibrate incessantly. Notifications flooded my screen. A video had been posted to a local community forum and then shared by several anonymous accounts. It was titled "Toxic Mother Tries to Ruin Wedding." The clip was a choppy, edited montage of me arguing with a contractor 3 years ago about a leaking roof, spliced with audio of me raising my voice. It made me look unhinged, controlling, and hysterical. "He is trying to destroy your credibility before you step foot in that venue," Denise said, watching the view count climb past 5,000. "He wants everyone to see a monster, so they won't listen to the truth." "Find where it came from," I said, refusing to look away from the screen. Denise needed less than an hour. It was not uploaded from a personal phone, she told me. It was uploaded from a media rental studio in Larkston, the same complex as the Marble Yard hub. He rented a suite for an hour this morning to edit and upload this anonymously. My employer called me into the office 10 minutes later. The video had reached the company intranet. David looked pained as I walked in. "Marianne, we have a reputation to maintain," he said, gesturing to his screen. This looks very bad." I did not apologize. I did not cry. I placed a heavy binder on his desk. "David, that video is a fabrication?" I said, my voice steady. "The man attacking me is currently under investigation for identity fraud and forgery. Here is the copy of the court motion filed this morning. If you fire me based on a smear campaign by a con artist, you will be the one explaining it to legal." David looked at the court seal on the document. He closed his laptop. "Go back to work." "Marianne, I had survived the first wave, but the water was rising. Late that afternoon, a contact Denise had at the local credit union called her personal line. The manager sounded frantic. "Denise, tell your client to freeze her daughter's credit reports immediately," the manager said. "We just had an online application for a $50,000 line of credit using Callie Whitaker's social security number. The electronic signature just came through." "Did you approve it?" Denise asked. "No. We flagged it because the IP address did not match her usual login location." The manager replied. Arthur acted instantly. He petitioned the judge for an emergency subpoena to release the geolocation data of the device that had attempted to open the credit line. The law moves slowly, but when fraud is happening in real time, it can move fast enough. By 6 in the evening, we had the result. The application had not come from Callie's apartment. It had been submitted from a device connected to the Wi-Fi network of the Silverpine Hall Hotel, specifically, the access point located in the bridal suite. Noah was not just marrying her. He was liquidating her future before she even walked down the aisle. He must have sensed the walls closing in. A few minutes later, I received a forwarded screenshot from Janelle, who had managed to get one text through to Callie. It was a message Noah had just sent to my daughter. It read, "Your mother is insane. She is trying to put me in jail because she hates our happiness. If you love me, you need to sign this confirmation that you authorized all financial moves. Do it now, or she wins." He was panicking. He was terrified. He was forcing her to sign a retroactive permission slip to cover his crimes. "He is going to make her sign it," Denise said, pacing the room. "Marianne, if she signs that document stating she gave him permission, the fraud charges won't stick. He walks away with the money, and she is left with the debt. She won't sign it if she knows the truth," Arthur said. "She won't believe the truth coming from me," I said. I looked at the pile of evidence on my desk. The dead witness, the fake parents, the stolen money, the edited video. I cannot just tell her. I have to let him hang himself. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting on the day before the wedding. "Let him think he has won tonight," I said. "Let him think I am defeated. Tomorrow, I am not going to stop the wedding. I am going to turn the ceremony into a deposition, and Callie is going to be the judge." The gravel parking lot of Silverpine Hall was shrouded in darkness. It was the night before the wedding, and the air was thick with the kind of silence that precedes a natural disaster. I did not drive up to the main entrance. I parked my sedan in the overflow lot, hidden behind a row of pine trees, and watched the lights of the venue flicker in the distance. I was a ghost, haunting the perimeter of my daughter's life. My phone illuminated the dark interior of the car. It was Denise. She had been working for 48 hours straight, and her voice sounded like gravel. "Marianne, I have the final pieces," Denise said. "We were right about the parents. Elise Kessler does not exist." "Who is she?" I asked, staring at the glowing windows of the hotel where my daughter was sleeping. "Her real name is Marla Denton," Denise said. "She has a record in 3 states for confidence schemes involving charity galas and wedding planning fraud. She is not a mother. She is an employee." "And the father, Gordon?" "Let me guess," I said. "He is not a retired diplomat. He is a background actor," Denise said. "I found his casting profile on a talent agency website. His specialty listed is dignified professional and father of the groom." Noah didn't introduce Callie to his family. He held an audition and hired a cast. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. It was one thing to lie about money. It was another to populate a wedding with actors paid to deceive a woman who just wanted to be loved. I did not sleep. I sat there as the hours crawled by. At exactly 2:13 in the morning, my phone chimed. It was a voice message from Callie. I pressed the phone to my ear, my hand trembling. "Mom." Her voice was a whisper, broken and terrified. "Mom, I am scared. Something is wrong. But if I stop, they will ruin me. He says I will lose everything if I don't walk down that aisle. I don't know what to do." The message ended. She was not walking into a marriage. She was walking into a hostage negotiation. She knew something was wrong, but Noah had terrified her into compliance. He had convinced her that the only way out was through. I placed the phone down and opened my briefcase. I had prepared a dossier that was thick with the weight of truth. It contained the bank logs showing the unauthorized credit inquiry from the hotel Wi-Fi. It held the court order freezing the assets. It had the digital file of the recording where Noah, posing as Arthur Lyle, had tried to steal $50,000 from me. And now, it had the headshots of Marla Denton and the actor playing Gordon, printed side by side with their criminal and casting records. Arthur had given me strict instructions. "You cannot just burst in screaming." He had warned me earlier. "If you cause a scene, you are the unstable mother he warned everyone about. You have to wait for the moment where the law intersects with the ceremony. You have to be surgical." I understand. I had told him. I checked in with Denise one last time. She had arranged for local law enforcement to be stationed just outside the property line. They could not enter without probable cause of an active crime or a disturbance, but they were ready. The moment Noah tried to run, or the moment the fraud was exposed, they would move. The sun began to crest over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and grey. It was the morning of the wedding. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, but my eyes were clear. I reached up to my neck and unclasped the thin gold chain I always wore. It held a small pendant Callie had given me for my 50th birthday. I held the necklace in my palm for a moment, feeling the cold metal. Wearing it made me feel like a mother hoping for reconciliation. Today, I could not afford to be soft. I needed to be a witness. I dropped the necklace into my pocket. I stepped out of the car, smoothed my skirt, and began the long walk toward the venue. The happy day was about to begin, and I was bringing the storm with me. I stood at the wrought iron gates of Silverpine Hall, the place where my daughter was supposed to ruin her life. The security guard looked at his clipboard, saw the red line through my name, and stepped forward to block me. I did not yell. I did not plead. I simply opened my leather briefcase and pulled out the court order Arthur had secured hours ago. I am here with a temporary restraining order regarding identity fraud and a subpoena for the groom. I told the venue manager, who had rushed over. You can let me in, or you can explain to the police why you are obstructing a federal investigation. The gate opened. Inside, the venue was decorated like a fairy tale, but the atmosphere felt like a funeral waiting to happen. The guests were seated. Noah stood at the altar, looking handsome and terrifyingly confident in his tuxedo. In the front row, the people playing his parents, Gordon and Elise, were whispering to each other with the frantic energy of actors who had forgotten their lines. They were not looking at their son with pride. They were scanning the exits. I walked past the stunned ushers and went straight to the bridal suite. I pushed the door open. Callie was standing in front of the mirror. She looked like a ghost in white satin. Her face was pale, and I noticed a red welt on her wrist where she had been gripping her diamond bracelet too tight. "Mom," she gasped, her eyes widening. "You can't be here," he said. 60 seconds, I said, locking the door behind me. "That is all I ask. Then I will leave." "He will be so angry," Callie whispered. "Mom, please, I have to do this." I walked over to the vanity and placed my phone on the marble surface. I pressed play. The room filled with the sound of the recording I had made yesterday. The voice was unmistakable. It was Noah, posing as a lawyer, demanding the transfer code for $50,000. "Just give me the code. By noon, tomorrow, it is done." Callie froze. The colour drained from her lips. She looked at the phone, then at me. "That is Noah," she said, her voice trembling. "He tried to steal from me yesterday. Callie," I said softly. "He is not rich. He is broke. And he is a con artist." Callie collapsed onto the velvet ottoman, burying her face in her hands. Sobs racked her body. "He told me," she choked out between tears. "He told me he had a file on you. He said he had proof that you embezzled money from your company. He said that if I didn't cut you off and marry him, he would leak the evidence and send you to prison. I did it to protect you. Mom." My heart broke and healed in the same second. She had not rejected me out of hate. She had rejected me out of fear. He had weaponized her love for me to isolate her. Dry your eyes, I said, handing her a tissue. We are going out there? To cancel it, she asked. No, I said. To end it. We walked out of the suite. I took her arm. We did not walk down the aisle to the wedding march. We walked in silence. The guests turned, confusion rippling through the crowd. Noah's smile faltered as he saw me. We stopped 10 feet from the altar. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Callie Noah said, forcing a laugh. Darling, what is she doing here? I stepped forward. My voice rang out clear and sharp, cutting through the humid air. Before she says I do, I have one question for the groom, I said. What is your real name? Noah's face hardened. Security. Get her out of here. It is Evan Keller. Denise shouted. She stepped out from behind a pillar, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. She held up a blue folder. We have a warrant for Evan Keller, alias Nathan Kay, alias Noah Kessler. The guests gasped. Noah looked left and right, panic finally shattering his mask. He turned to the woman playing his mother. Marla. Do something, he screamed. The crowd erupted in whispers. He had just called Elise by her real name. That is Marla Denton, Denise announced, pointing at the fake parents. Wanted for fraud in 3 states. Marla and Gordon stood up and tried to bolt toward the side exit, but the police officers moved in, blocking their path. Noah stood alone at the altar, a king without a kingdom. The illusion had not just cracked, it had exploded. Callie looked at him. She did not look scared anymore. She looked at the stranger in the tuxedo. Then she looked down at her hands. She opened her fingers. The white bouquet of roses fell to the floor with a soft thud. The happy day ended right there, amidst the chaos of police radios and shocked murmurs. Callie turned to me, her eyes filled with tears, but her chin held high. You saved me, Mum, she whispered. I shook my head and took her hand. No, I said. You saved yourself when you dared to look at the truth. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on today's episode. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Grandma's Family Diary channel, hit the like button, and smash that hype button to help this video reach more people. Your support means the world to us.